Welcome, and thank you for the time and attention that you've paid to our West Virginia facilities. We've had some ups and downs, as you know, and I appreciate the constant communication. It's been terrific. Because of the things that happened at the Lewis Johnson Veterans Facility, I was able, with the support of my colleagues, to ask the VA to install more cameras because that would have helped us a lot in trying to get the perpetrator a lot quicker than we did. And I think you have to report back by November the 23rd. I just wanted to put that on your radar screen to see if you had any comments on how that project's going and what kind of future you see.
So it's on my radar screen, partly because of this hearing, partly because you and I talk on a very regular basis, and I know how important it is to you. We have deployed the cameras. We are beginning to use them and beginning to make these initial assessments. There is some privacy concerns, as you're aware of, that we're working through, but we'll be in a position to surely make that report to you in a timely way.
Hopefully we won't have to use them as we would have had to use them in Clarksburg. I want to ask you about the asset and infrastructure review. I want to make sure I understand the process, not just the process. So we have 4 VAs in West Virginia. It looks as though 3 of them will, in this recommendation, will be essentially closed, emergency rooms closed, and other recommendations. And I'm wondering, number one, how you came to the conclusions. There's a big uproar in our state, and we've already sent you a letter, and I'm sure you've heard from other members of our delegation on this.
And other delegations.
And other delegations, yes. So can it be changed? Is it like a BRAC where you come back with another final recommendation?
It's a good question. So this was enacted as part of the Mission Act in 2018. So this process was underway when I arrived.
Right.
The first step was to do assessments in 96 markets in the country. How many vets are there today? What are the vets going to need today? And then what do they need in 3 decades? What is the infrastructure that we have there? What's in the community? And so to make some informed assessments as to how we can address what vets will need and who can do it through a combination, as we always have at VA, of direct VA care and then care in the community and then care with our academic affiliates. I make the recommendations to the commission. The commission has until under the statute, until next February to accept or reject those recommendations.
Can they line item?
They can line item, but according to the statute, I think the statute, frankly, was written with a predisposition to close. They can only reject a recommendation of mine if they find that I deviated significantly from the criteria I published in May 2021 that would serve as the basis for any decision. Now, there's a curveball here, which is some of that data on which I made recommendations, I've acknowledged publicly, and I just did again here, may be dated itself because it predates a pandemic. Healthcare delivery in West Virginia is different today than it was then. Things like long COVID were probably insufficiently considered when we think about long-term needs of vets. Somewhere between 4 and 7 vets who get COVID are developing long COVID symptoms. So the commission itself then can send it back to me to say, hey, fix this. They can get data from you, from your constituents, from trips that they'll take to your state. Then once they get comfortable with it, they can recommend it to the president. The president then can decide, hey, I don't like any of this, I'm done with it. Or he can send it up here to you.
So
then you can up or down it.
Right.
But if he sends it to you, you can't up or down it. You can down it, you can disapprove it. But if he sends it to you, I'd assume he's sending it to you because he agrees with it. Meaning, if you disapprove it, I'd assume you'd have to disapprove it at veto-proof majorities.
Right.
You see what I mean? So it
I do.
It kind of has set all the gates toward, I'd just be very candid with you, it's set all the gates toward close. Now, there's one last thing, and I'm sorry to drone on here, but the commissioners themselves have not yet been confirmed. They're pending your consideration.
Have they been nominated?
8 of the 9 have been nominated. The 9th is, by tradition, as laid out in the statute, the Senate Republican leaders pick. So he hasn't yet announced his pick.
Okay.
Or he's obviously working with the president because the president has to nominate him back to here. So we're sitting at 8 of the 9. They've not yet been begun for consideration in the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee.
So like, I know I'm probably over time, but just as an example, the Huntington VA is over Charleston.
Yes.
Charleston has a CBOC.
Yes.
15 years ago, we moved the CBOC to a bigger place to get better accessibility from southern West Virginia and other places. This recommendation is that you move it again. And I'm thinking, that sounds like a giant waste of money. The states moved their VA offices down there to co-locate.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I don't understand. And so I'm putting that on your radar screen just as doesn't make sense to me. And the other thing is, when you looked at what local resources had, did they look at what they could actually provide? So I'm talking to a hospital administrator. I said, if they close the Huntington VA, can you absorb these surgeries? And they're like, we don't really know.
Yeah. So the answer to that is yes. And what we should do is make sure that we get you all that data.
Okay.
I think we've offered this to your team. And I hope that you would then go to the commission and say, hey, we don't think this is right. But we did make assessment, or the team that ran the market assessments, now this started in 2019, did make assessments as to what the capability in Huntington is.
Right.
And then we made some determinations, importantly, about the quality of that care.
Right.
Using the existing Medicare and Medicaid
Right.
quality ratings. All of this is rebuttable. And so I think that's the importance of the commission process. But again, the statute envisions a fixed date, a fixed end date to the commission.
finishes up.
So the longer we go without the commission at the start here,
Yeah, the harder
the
it's
less
gonna be.
time they have to consider the recommendations. And so I'm a little concerned about that.
All right, thank you.